Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Beyond Headlines with Akhilesh and me. A year back, Cyrus Mistry, the former chairperson of Tata Sons, had filed a petition with the National Company Law Tribunal, NCLT, against his dismissal from the Tata board. Now, first and foremost, Akhilesh, why was Cyrus sacked?
You know, when a daughter-in-law comes to the house, the mother-in-law has to give way for the daughter-in-law. The mother-in-law did not give way for the daughter-in-law. So the daughter-in-law failed.
So what you're technically saying is Ratan Tata, the mother-in-law, didn't give Cyrus Mistry, the daughter-in-law, enough space to operate and actually didn't want to give away the rights of Tata Sons to the daughter-in-law, that is Cyrus Mistry.
I mean, if I talk in corporate jargon, the Tata trusts, which are controlled by Mr. Ratan Tata, who I have the highest respect for, they own 66% of the shareholding of Tata Sons. The Mistry family owns only 18%. So while Cyrus Mistry came on the seat, the board of directors of Tata Sons were primarily and almost all proteges or nominees of Ratan Tata. So getting him sacked was an easy coup for them.
Before we continue with this discussion, I would reiterate what Akhilesh says. The both of us have utmost regards and respect for Sri Ratan Tata. He's one of the better corporates and one of the better corporate leaders
He's
in
a
India.
luminary of Indian corporate scene,
Absolutely.
but we are talking management situations.
We are talking management situation. So, well, it does not reflect our respect or our regards for Mr. Ratan Tata here. But that being said, serious note, what exactly went wrong? Why did Ratan Tata sack Cyrus?
See, Sujit, when there's a change in leadership, I think the first imperative is the outgoing leadership needs to make it comfortable for the incoming leadership to take charge. If you go to the time of when Mr. Ratan Tata himself was appointed the chairman of Tata Sons, he had huge detractors and they were extremely formidable opponents, if I have to say so. Darbari Seth, Rusi Modi, Ajit Kerkar, they were titans of the Tata group and he had to take on them. He had the support of JRD Tata. So JRD ensured that he got into his chair. When Cyrus Mistry got into his chair, he had none of his people in the camp to really support him. And when things were going tough for him, he raised issues which he calls them legacy hotspots.
Legacy hotspots.
And those legacy hotspots got taken probably personally by the Ratan Tata camp. So it was a corporate coup and he was summarily dismissed, which in my opinion was unbecoming.
Legacy hotspots would be investment in the...
I'll tell you what happens, Sujit. You know, any corporate top leader in these days does a lot of acquisitions or gets into fresh projects. Like you take the case of Jeffrey Immelt. He just retired or resigned as the chairperson of GE. He had an issue stuck on him that whichever acquisitions he did failed, or whichever new ventures he did fail, and he was considered to be a failure. That was General Electric CEO. In the case of the Tata Group, we had a lot of high-profile acquisitions that happened during Mr. Ratan Tata's tenure. Take Chorus Steel UK. I still remember it had hit the newspaper headlines that an Indian company coming on the global center stage. It was a $20 billion acquisition. This was the year 2007-8. On Chorus Steel itself, when Cyrus Mistry was now the chairman of Tata Sons and it was struggling, Chorus Steel UK was struggling, they were incurring losses every day. They took a hit of $10 billion. So the Tatas lost $10 billion in taking over Chorus. It was a very celebrated acquisition during Mr. Ratan Tata's tenure. He was dealing with these kind of legacy issues which were impacting the performance and cash flow of the Tata Group. He was raising them. They needed solutions. The solution unfortunately came by way of throwing him out.
So possibly is it that because he raised these questions that Mr. Ratan Tata felt threatened or felt insecure, or was it also the fact that Mr. Tata at some level didn't want to hand over the entire reins to...
See, in true terms, I don't think Mr. Cyrus Mistry was actually handed over the reins. He was the chairman of the board of directors, but none of the directors were really his men, except probably two who abstained from voting on that resolution wherein he was dismissed, which is Ishat Hussain and Farida Khambata. Everybody else was again lined up against him. So I don't think he really ever got into the chair. The larger than life image, the huge shareholding that was at the command of Mr. Ratan Tata was always lurking in the background. So I think he really never got a chance to be in the seat, even though he was almost there for 4 years.
So somewhere down the line, do you think that Cyrus was given a raw deal?
I would say so.
Cyrus was given a raw deal. And so if you were to weigh this, had Cyrus's questioning Ratan Tata management weighed more, or did the fact that Ratan Tata somewhere down the line, hearts of hearts, didn't want to give Cyrus the...
See, Sujit, the good part of this entire saga is neither camp questioned the integrity of the other camp. That's the good part of it. Which means we are talking about, was the leadership of Cyrus Mistry good enough for the Tata camp? Now, leadership is a very contextual or relative concept. Probably his leadership did not suit into it. The flashpoint came when he raised these legacy issues, because I'm sure he would be battling with cash flows issues at that point of time, which even the Tata group would have suffered to that extent. Let me tell you the entire legacy issues, and then you will probably realize that it could have been a serious cash flow issue that he was probably trying to raise before the board, and they didn't want it to be raised because maybe the Ratan Tata camp thought that was a list of their failures, and they precipitated his sacking. So what were the legacy issues? I told you about Tata Steel Chorus acquisition. They lost $10 billion. They had invested about $6 billion in Tata Teleservices. The venture failed. They have recently sold it off to Bharti Airtel for zero. They got nothing. They just handed it over. It was given free.
Free, of course.
So Tata Teleservices, about $6 billion gone down the drain. In the case of the Nano project, which never really took off, the losses are said to be around 1,500 crores. He couldn't close down the project because there was a huge emotional tug of Nano to Mr. Ratan Tata. So he was dealing again with cash flow issues in that case. In AirAsia case, which they say, I'll come to AirAsia later. Before that, Tata Power, they invested about 5,000-6,000 crores in a power project at Mundra, Gujarat. They are now offering to sell it and cut off their losses for 1 rupee to the government of Gujarat. Oh. So even that went down the drain. All the acquisitions that happened, high-profile acquisitions during the tenure of Mr. Ratan Tata in Indian Hotels Company. You remember they had acquired a stake in Orient Express, Orient Hotels, and a slew of others.
Yes.
They actually again gave losses to Indian Hotels, such that the entire net worth had been wiped out. Because the group is so old and strong that it clawed back. A normal company in Indian Hotels case would have actually gone to the NCLT for insolvency. The Tata Capital One, there were issues of non-performing assets not recognized, loans given to the infrastructure sector, loans given to Mr. C. Sivsankaran, who has a very questionable role in this entire game.
Sivsankaran was also involved with Chidambaram's
Aircel Max.
Absolutely, Aircel Maxis.
Which loans given to him have been finally written off.
But why was the loan given to him? On what context? On what?
Maybe even Mr. Cyrus Mistry didn't know, so he was questioning it. Even we wouldn't know.
Let's stick to this. This sounds interesting. Sivsankaran was given close to 600 crores of loan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, in that region.
Yeah?
Yes.
Why were these loans given to him?
Sujit, there is not clear data available.
What is the relation between Sivsankaran and Tata Group?
He's considered to be a very close friend of Mr. Ratan Tata.
Also, very close friend of Mr. Chidambaram.
Perhaps, yes.
So, was this 600 crore given to a person just because he is Ratan Tata's friend? And
we really wouldn't know, but these were issues he was trying to raise. The flashpoint that they say that came was, he had appointed Deloitte to conduct a forensic audit on AirAsia. And the Deloitte report mentioned some 22 crores of money given by AirAsia to non-existent entities in Singapore and India. And they say that report was to be presented in that meeting, and before it could be presented, they say he was thrown out. That is the same point now which CBI is questioning AirAsia. So there was some material in it.
So, Akhilesh, had Cyrus found out something? Had Cyrus something up his sleeves? Did Cyrus stumble on some information which he shouldn't have? Is that the reason? Is that one of the reasons why the board sacked him?
See, Sujit, as the chairman of the board, there is no information that we can say that he should not have stumbled on. He was the chairman of the board. There is no information which is sacrosanct which he
Was
would
that
not.
the reason why he ceased to be the chairman?
I think he was raising issues which needed serious deliberation. If your group is suffering these kind of losses and the losses were gigantic, I think he was raising these issues. My reading of the entire affair was that they were too uncomfortable for the Ratan Tata camp. Probably somewhere they may have thought it's getting too personal. So it got personal. They sacked him without even giving him an opportunity to represent his case.
So that means there is a lot more than what eyes can see.
Well, it's like this, Sujit. In October 2016, when he was sacked, at that time, probably all these turn of events had not yet crystallized. Tata had not yet written off, or recognized the losses on Chorus Steel. Tata Teleservices had not yet been sold to Airtel. It just got done recently. They had not yet put Mundra power plant on block for 1 rupee to the Gujarat government. So all these losses were not recognized. Nano was still a hopeful Nano. Now the recent news item says they want to shut down the Nano project. So at that time, things had not precipitated or concluded. But if you see hindsight, Mr. Mistry's issues, legacy issues, were issues.
Before I conclude, I want to get one. That being said, again I reiterate, we have huge respect for Mr.
I'm
Ratan
not
Tata.
sitting here to criticize Mr. Ratan
Yeah,
Tata.
absolutely.
I'm pretty clear about that. But we are just talking
but-
issues from a corporate perspective.
But there are certain questions that needs answers, and those answers are not readily available as we see it. Okay, last question. Did Cyrus fail as a leader?
See, Sujit, like I said earlier, leadership is contextual. It is a very relative term. And if we have to just absolutely write him off, I would certainly not do that. Maybe the circumstance in which he occupied the chair, wherein he was sitting on the chair, but the members on the board were not his. He always had the tug of Mr. Tata being a 66% holder in the Tata Sons board by virtue of the shareholding of the Tata Trust. I don't think he was given the flexibility to
Cyrus
perform.
has 18.
The Mistry family has 18.
Correct.
So I think he was a leader with a lot of stones tied to his feet. He couldn't run.
So, can I conclude by saying the reason possibly why Cyrus was sacked is more to do with the questions he raised rather than the managerial duties that he performed?
It has got nothing to do with Mr. Mistry, according to me. It has to do with a boardroom battle.
Correct.
And the boardroom battle was conducted in a very sudden, if I have to even use the word, non-judicious manner, because you cannot sack the chairman of Tata Sons without giving him an opportunity to represent his case, or without even giving him a notice that we are going to pass this resolution against you. So it was, I think, a boardroom battle. It was a corporate coup.
So NCLT will
The biggest of luminaries are there on both sides of the table. And in front of those luminaries, Sujit, you and I are ordinary men.
no fair,
So,
but
we don't know.
let's take our show. So we are the luminaries here. So let's take a guess. It will NCLT rule in?
I don't think it will rule in his favor, only because the entire case will the entire judgment will be a huge wire mesh of technicalities under the law, and they will not disturb the status quo.
Thank you so much, Akhilesh. That was a very enlightening discussion. Cyrus Mistry was sacked from the Tata board. Was sacked as the chairman of Tata Sons purely because he raised questions which were difficult for the board to answer. How fair is that? See you next time. Namaskar.
If you like this video, please share it, and we would love to hear your comments in the comments section down here. Also, please do like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter to get minute-to-minute news updates. For more such shows and videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel.